Okay, we're coming back for the second hour of Night Terrors Radio. Again, I am Ash Hamilton of Horror Fix, horror-fix.com. I have got Jim Chandler, also a horror-fix.com contributor. And Mark doesn't do shit. He just
Mark
sitting
does
there.
not do shit. Mark's still hung up on parafactor.com.
Well, Mark is one of the radio alumni, though. He's one of the internet radio alumni. So Mark has actually got a seat with us tonight, which it has been, I think it's been over 10 years, Mark, or damn close.
It's been close because we ended the show. It was
at least 9. I think it's been 9.
It was May 21st, 2010. I want to say.
Oh wow.
Jeez.
So 9.
Yeah.
It's been 9 years.
9 years
since we have been in the same room on mics.
Yeah, because we tried to do it because that was when we did the Turtle Creek campground show.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that was effectively our last show because right after that, you had moved out of the house where you were living in, and the place you moved to had really awful internet.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
And we just couldn't carry the show because the internet wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, and plus it wasn't conducive. It wasn't a studio conducive environment. There wasn't really any place to soundproof. There wasn't any place just to make it sound good.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was one thing that we always had the luxury of, was having a good sounding show.
Yeah.
So at least we're back to having a good sounding show, which is essential to actually having a good sounding show. So we are going to go with a topic that is pretty near and dear to me. I love the idea of movies that we did not get proper sequels or sequels at all for. Like, this is one of those speculative ideas that I love talking about as far as movies go. Because I've got a ton of movies that I wish we would have seen another installment, but another installment done right.
Yeah, there's a ton of movies where we got another installment, and it was done incredibly wrong.
Highlander. I'm sorry.
Jim is anti-Highlander 2 tonight.
Yeah, Jim is
now just the regular one
Highlander.
or the Renegade version?
Oh, you know what? The only thing Highlander 2 had it going for it that the other movies didn't, it had the sense of humor, sort of the light sense of humor in it that the first one did, but that was about it.
And then, of course, there were so many iterations of Highlander.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I mean, between it and then, we had always sort of felt that the TV series Highlander was sort of a different universe.
Right.
But then those two universes did combine.
Ah, yes.
I mean, there was a Christopher Lambert, Adrian Paul Highlander movie, correct?
Endgame, yes.
They were both in. Did you ever see it?
Yeah. It's bad. It's
Just answer my next question, because I don't think I ever saw that one.
Yeah, I think they...
I basically landed on the idea that it was going to be bad.
I saw it a long time ago. Here's something. If you ever watch Monsters, Inc., have you guys both seen it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know the part when Sully thinks Boo is in the chunk of metal that's been crushed?
Right, yeah.
If you ever look at the one side...
That's Jim's soul after watching
That's my
Highlander
soul.
Endgame.
there is an Endgame, Highlander Endgame soundtrack crushed into the side of it. If you know what it looks like, it's a CD in the side of it, because I believe it was on a Disney, like Hollywood Records label or something.
Wow.
And it's just kind of like sitting there, and I saw it and going, I knew exactly what it was as soon as I saw it. And if you really don't know, it's just blurry enough that if you know what it is, it's exactly it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a deep dive.
That is some trivia that I was not aware of.
I'll have to find a screen grab of that. I'll get a screen grab.
Yeah, I was not prepared for that, Mr. Chandler. I was not prepared for that at all.
Few people are.
So we had talked about, of course, this was during the break before we came back on the air, which was gold.
It was
And now we got to try to recreate it,
Yes.
which always stinks. But we had talked about just running through some of the list of Carpenter films and ones that maybe we would have liked to have seen, sequels to. And like I always think of They Live. Like I always thought, it'd be interesting to see the further actions of the resistance, in this sort of ongoing fight and struggle.
And, there's a funny thing about this too. There was a very rare DVD release of They Live that had a commentary track of Rowdy Roddy Piper and John Carpenter doing commentary together. And if you listen to it, it's so funny. Rowdy Roddy Piper's like, John, we really did a good job with this movie. We really need to do another one. And like the whole time, Rowdy Roddy Piper is trying to convince John Carpenter to do The Second They Live just so he can be in another movie.
Did Carpenter even humor him like for a second, or was he just like changing the subject?
I remember. I think he kind of just humors him a little bit.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, yeah, sure, okay.
Because I can see Piper just first of all being very enthusiastic.
Oh yeah.
Like the entire commentary, and Carpenter just waiting to get out of the room.
Yeah.
So that's one They Live. Man, in his prime, I would have loved to have seen a direct follow up to the thing. I would have loved to have seen where that could have gone.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm one of the people that did not hate the prequel.
No, I didn't either.
See, I don't think I saw the prequel because of how much hatred it got. I was like, I don't want it to sour my taste of the thing because
I don't think it's a bad film at all. I really don't.
Because the thing is generally one of my annual Christmas movies.
Right.
That and Schindler's List. No.
Oh man, there's a movie that did not need a sequel.
No.
Did not need a sequel. Yeah, I agree with you. I liked it also, and I mean, the CGI effects are what it gets most of its criticism for. But what I liked was it felt like a companion to it. It didn't feel like it was, tried to be something more or whatever. It tried to fit with it.
Yeah.
And I thought they bridged that very well.
And I think it's interesting that you use the word companion because it almost feels like if someone would have written a book to the thing as a companion book to explain things, this would be that film.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I know that there was a ton of practical effects created for it that were scrapped.
Right.
I've heard a lot of people say that footage is somewhere. And people have said that they want to try to make a more complete cut of it with those original practical effects. But again, I don't think it made an incredible amount of money when it came out.
No.
And not enough to justify a company getting together and trying to make a new cut of it anyways. And that's what we're always left with. Did it make enough money? Is it going to make enough money?
And as a side note, you bring up the digital effects. I just want to mention, I saw this video a couple weeks ago. There's a series of digital effects guys from that are doing it now, going back and watching older movies that had digital effects and commenting on how the field has improved and just pointing out little goofy flaws in this and that. But it was just funny. One of them that stuck out was they were watching Episode 1, Star Wars Episode 1. And they were just like, wow, these digital effects for being that old are almost flawless. And talking about how well done that was.
Now, have either of you heard about the new documentary about the making of Episode 1?
No.
Yeah, there's a full-length feature documentary that's just about the making of Episode 1. And I think it's called Beginnings. I've read a couple reviews on it, so I know that it's out there. As far as when I guess the mainstream market's going to grab it and we're going to be able to see it, I don't know. But if you get a chance, just reading the reviews are both frightening and hilarious.
Really?
At the amount of megalomania that Lucas was experiencing during this film.
Really?
Now, I had known a guy who did some LucasArts work, and he had done some production stuff for Attack of the Clones, like pre-production stuff, a lot of sketches, a lot of environment work, as far as paintings and stuff. And he said that the process for working with Lucas was very interesting because he was one of maybe like 12 production designers in that unit. And he would give them all like the same task. Would be like, I have this idea for a ship. It's a small ship. It's a freighter. You know what I mean? It's a ship that smugglers would use. So it's a little bit worn. It's a little bit space weary, travel weary. And then he would have them go and create all of these, right? And they'd spend considerable amounts of time on it, because apparently the guy just has so much money. I mean, he just, I guess that production with George Lucas, he's never sitting there thinking about cost. And I've heard that from a lot of people, that he never sits there and thinks to himself, we've only got this much amount of time because this much time equals this much money. That it's always just, this is what I want, and we're going to do this until I get what I want. because he's got the money.
Because he's George Lucas.
He's
That's
George Lucas.
what he does.
So he said that they would all get together and that it would be a wall of their paintings and their drawings and their digital roughs and stuff. And he would just come up to the wall and just take some down and just like throw them on the floor of the ones he didn't like. And it wasn't even like he was providing them direction. It was just he'd shake his head.
It's whatever grabs him.
Yeah.
Pull him off the wall and throw him on the floor.
Sometimes that's how you got to do it, because I mean, you don't know why. You don't always know why things aesthetically work or why they don't. You just see it and you're just like, no, this doesn't work for me. So
Connects with you.
Yeah.
And we all know, like, classically, Lucas is not a human interaction guy.
No.
Yeah.
Like, that's everyone across the board has basically said that about the guy. Like, if you're really looking for a lot of direction from him, go find the second unit director. Because that's the guy you'll have to talk to, because Lucas just doesn't want to talk. But I just thought that was interesting that documentary is coming out. I find it fascinating because, he does still have sort of that Orson Welles kind of quality to me, of this larger-than-life personality who famously sometimes is difficult. And I kind of like hearing those stories because those personalities are seeming to get rarer and rarer.
But the thing about it is, though, we're kind of straying a little off topic of what we were discussing, but it also kind of ties in.
Who would have ever thought that would have happened on this show?
Look at not just the original trilogy, but also the prequels, and then look at the newer ones. And there's definitely a difference in quality in the storytelling between them.
Well,
I liked the newer ones. I liked what J.J. Abrams did with not Last Jedi, the one before, Force Awakens.
Yeah.
I did not like a few of the paths they took on The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi was a very divisive film for Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
And it's talked about daily on the internet still of how divisive it really was. I thought there were some very interesting new Star Wars moments in The Last Jedi. I liked what Abrams did. I didn't really feel like Abrams was taking a lot of chances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it was solid.
It was solid.
But and even though I'm not for sure that Rian Johnson made the best choice of The Last Jedi,
he did take some chances.
He took some risks. And it felt like older Star Wars and some of the risks that he took. Flying into the mouth of a monster. Was something that classically is not a moment that you think would have worked, but it was cool because it opened the universe up. It lets you know that, man, there are things that are huge out there, that we don't even get to spend a lot of time with. It's only a flash of a few seconds. But
it was not like a Lovecraftian space monster. Seriously.
Well, it's this huge, the idea of something that gigantic, that enormous, is something that sort of rattles the brain. I guess it would be like finding a whale in your swimming pool. You know what I mean? It's like you're not expecting something of that size in there.
Well, I remember when that happened.
And then you're like, now I got to sell the fucking house because this is a fucking swimming pool.
It's infested with whales.
Right, yeah. It's like, goddamn it, Martha. There should be a phone number beside the fridge. Let's go ahead and give it a call because the whales are back. And I want a refund on my last whale cleaning. But it's just this weird thing where, like I said, I still think the new ones are solid movies. They're not, and this is strange, but they're not nearly as rewatchable as, let's say, I liked Episode 3, probably more than a lot of people liked.
That was all right, yeah.
And you know what's weird is I went back and rewatched Episode 1 a couple months ago, and it wasn't as bad as I remember it.
I have heard, and now I have not spent a lot of time with fan edits, but it is a part of the internet that I might want to spend some time with, because I like the idea. Like Jim and I have talked this before, because I do a lot of video editing. My day-to-day work is largely editing. I do a ton of it, and it's almost your soul work, right? I mean, it's shooting or editing.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So Jim and I are constantly watching film, handling film, dealing with audio, just dealing with the idea of putting stuff together to make something that resembles a cohesive narrative, right?
Yeah.
So this idea that people will take a movie and literally re-edit it
Right.
is, to me, it's fascinating because of the commitment. I mean, I've edited a 5-minute short film. Award-winning short film. I've edited a 5-minute short film, and it was a labor. We're talking a labor to get this thing to even resemble the part where I was like, I have reached 70% shit.
Yeah.
You know, just to get it at that 70%, where it was 30% okay, was nerve-wracking.
And you're doing that all on computers too.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So could you imagine, like,
Film.
I mean, I'm sure we've all seen Dawn of the Dead until we're blue in the face.
Right.
The number of cuts
green.
in that movie, and him doing that with the film, had to be insanely time-consuming.
Oh yeah. And when I look at someone who's, you know, even though they're doing the fan edits digitally as well usually, but the fact that they're taking an entire feature-length film, and often a long film, and editing it down and making sure that the transitions work and making sure that it still retains the story.
Yeah, there's no plot holes that...
So I know that there is a Jar Jar Less episode 1.
It's called a
fan edit.
Phantom edit, I believe.
I believe it has almost no Jar Jar. And it has a couple of the cringe-worthy Anakin moments taken out.
Right.
And I've heard it's quite good.
Yeah.
I've heard that when you do watch it that way, you're like, wow, this is a vision of episode 1 that might have been more digestible.
Yeah, well, with Anakin, really all you need to take out is the yippee
Oh, fuck me.
and the, are you an angel?
Oh, Jesus Christ. When you say it, not saying this just you, if anyone would say it, like when you say it, it's like I forgot that a dog died. Until someone mentions the name, and then I'm like, this is what I've been repressing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I've been repressing the death of my dog for years. And then somebody's like, how is
Spot.
Puffy or fucking, and then you're like, who? And then it all comes flooding back.
Watch this. Yippee!
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's, you know what's almost equally as bad, though, since we're totally digressing? That fucking line from Spider-Man 3 where the two kids are watching the showdown. Wicked cool!
Oh, dear God.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Man.
I know it wasn't Sam Raimi. I know he did not think that was a good idea.
No, Sam Raimi needs to be corrected for that one. He should have cut that. But I think with Spider-Man 3, there was a lot of studio interference in that.
Yeah, I don't really know how much of that Raimi actually touched.
Yeah.
Like, going back and watching it, to tell you the truth, I don't mind the goofy shit in Spider-Man 3. I really don't.
See, I think it was Kevin Smith who I read an interview with was talking about Tobey Maguire's emo little thing in that when he got the Venom suit. And he's like, you know what? It makes sense because those are the people. Peter Parker is such a nerdy dork.
that he doesn't know what cool is.
That he doesn't know what cool is, and he probably sees those people, and that's what he thinks cool is. So when he has this opportunity to be cool and he's got this Venom suit, he kind of latches onto that.
Right,
you know?
because the weird thing about it is that, and if we really want to dissect this for a bit, like, when the symbiote gets someone else, when it gets someone like Eddie Brock, when it gets someone like Cletus Cassidy, when it gets those people, you see the personality of the symbiote a lot, you know, because it's got a host that it's this weird sort of...
It's basically like seeing someone that's drunk without them being drunk. Where that whole filter, that whole facade that they put on is just lifted and you see them for what they really are.
Right. So, but Peter Parker is so intrinsically good. I mean, his moral compass is so spot on that all it does is make him slightly an asshole. That's the worst.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the worst. So when
Not even slightly an asshole, just an annoying kid.
Right.
right, yeah, I mean, Venom with Eddie Brock will bite heads off.
Yeah.
Right.
But the symbiote with Peter Parker dances.
Yeah.
Like, that's how good
Badly.
Peter's moral compass is that the worst thing I could draw out is him dancing. That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing you could do. And then he hit a girl by accident.
Right.
It had to wait for an accident for bad things to happen because Peter is so white bread. He's so absolutely white bread. But no, that was what we were talking about. We talked about it one time too, and Smith had such an accurate representation of what happened in that movie because the symbiote doesn't know cool. It doesn't know enough about all of this.
It doesn't understand pop culture. And
No.
it's an alien, for
Like,
Christ's
it can't
sakes.
fit cool into Peter's head. It can only take stuff from Peter's head and magnify it. So, for Peter, like, there's a part of Peter Parker's brain that thinks that there are still poetry circles with beatniks. You know what I mean? Like, it's still there that he saw it in a comic book. That it's like, oh, these people still... click their fingers together to clap and stuff. It's like he doesn't realize that he's so far removed from cool that has been cool for 40 years, 50 years. But for Peter Parker, that's what he's read as cool in an old book. Because he's not that version of Peter Parker is not an updated Peter Parker. He's squarely still sort of in the 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, now Peter Parker's different. I like Tom Holland as Peter Parker.
Yeah,
but
Tom Holland's great.
But it's definitely an updated Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is a quintessential Silver Age comic book Peter Parker.
And going back to the Tom Holland Peter Parker and those movies, I haven't seen the newest one yet, but I loved Homecoming. And which is weird because of the number of social justice warrior hoops that movie jumped through for it to still come out and be a good movie. That's saying something.
Well, Marvel's got its work cut out for him. Essentially, it's weird because you can't please everybody. You just can't. And I do see Marvel trying. I see Marvel trying more and more to take very small percentages of an audience and try to appeal to them enough that they're filling what they think is a bigger need than maybe what it really is.
That I think is coming down from Disney, because that's happening in the Star Wars movie. You got Super Mary Sue of Rey. You've got they're doing the live action Little Mermaid, and they just cast a black girl as Ariel, which fine. I don't have an issue with that, but that wasn't Ariel, that everybody knows is the ginger girl. That's probably got freckles all over her.
Well, here's the problem that I have had, and that I still sort of have, is that I will never, ever in my life know what it's like to be another color than what I am.
Right.
Never.
Right.
This is who I've been my entire life. I'm not going to pretend that I know how good or bad someone else has it. Like, I can't pretend that. But here's who I am, and only through speculation can I say, if I was a black actress, or if I was just black, or Mexican or whatever, Latino or whatever, it's like I would rather see someone create a dynamic new character that I could be.
Yeah.
Where my origins really are my ethnic origins, as opposed to just getting thrown a bone where it's like, now you're Ariel. It's like, listen, give the Ariel part to the little white girl over there. Give me something that is actually me and my culture, which is why I think Black Panther worked as well as it did.
Exactly.
Because it wasn't reappropriation. All it really was is man, here is a classic, iconic character, and it fits with our current needs of empowering people who don't get empowered usually with superhero movies.
And did you watch the Luke Cage series on Netflix?
I have not watched any of the Marvel Netflix stuff.
Are you serious?
I've wanted to. It just never happened.
Oh, dude, you need to. Like, all of them were... Iron Fist is a little corny and goofy, but it's still fun. But, like, Luke Cage was amazing. Daredevil was phenomenal. Jessica Jones is probably... Even though as much as I love Daredevil, and he's been one of my favorite characters forever, Jessica Jones is probably my favorite of all
I
of those.
wanted to watch it strictly for David Tennant because I heard he's great.
Oh,
in
he
it.
is so good in that. So good.
You know, we're just going to totally digress. And the weird thing about it is this is a horror show, but it also shows just how nerdy we all are.
Oh, yeah.
Even when we're not talking about horror. I mean, the things that we're interested in. I mean, my interest, even though classically people walk into my office, they're going to think this mainly horror, is the fact that I have a lot of really geeky interests, and I've been a big comic book guy for a long time, is that, and I mean, people can even walk in my bedroom. My entire bedding is Doctor Who.
But
And it's like, I can't really hide this shit.
if you walk into his bedroom, though, you might not get out.
Well, nobody walks in my bedroom. Sometimes they crawl, sometimes they're led by chain. But you know, even talking about stuff like Doctor Who, even the idea of this, you know, let's make the Doctor a woman. Which, to tell you the truth, I've never had a problem with. I've never had a problem with that. I think the thing is that we had a character, River Song. I don't know how versed you guys are on Doctor Who, who was already basically the female version of Doctor Who. I would have much rather have seen a series for just her, because what they did is they accidentally created a fantastic female character that I really liked, that I wanted to see more of.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, unfortunately, this agenda where it's like, okay, we've got to make this shift. I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I know if I wasn't, if I wasn't a white dude,
Yeah.
and I still had my interests, I'd be sitting here going, I need something that I can attach myself to as an 11-year-old Puerto Rican girl. I would be sitting there thinking it. I would be thinking, why don't I see more of me all over here?
Yeah.
Because I want to. But the problem is that we keep just saying, okay, we're going to change this. We're going to change this for you. We're going to change this for you. We're going to give me something new.
And even a little bit outside of that, I have a lot of distaste for Captain Marvel. Well, not so much the character, or even Brie Larson annoyed the hell out of me with her interviews and all that, but that's beside the point. Here's what I don't like about Captain Marvel, and why it would have been better if they had waited a little bit to introduce her. Well, for one, everything was like, oh my god, it's a girl superhero. And then they put like heroism and this and that and all this stuff. Like, okay, we get it. It's a girl. I even made a joke to one of my friends. I still haven't seen the movie. But I made a joke to one of my friends. I was like, they are driving in the fact that she's a girl so much to the point, I bet at some point in the movie there's going to be a fight scene and they're going to play fucking I'm Just a Girl by No Doubt just to drive the fact that she's a girl. And sure as shit, I was right.
Well, here's
And well, hang on, I'm not completely done. Black Widow or Scarlet Witch should have had their own movie long before Captain Marvel did.
I agree.
Captain Marvel shouldn't have been introduced until after Endgame, because that makes it a whole thing of Deus Ex Machina, where it's like, oh, we've got these characters we've been building up for 12 years now through 22 movies, and then they're all in this peril, and then all of a sudden this broad that we introduced 30 seconds ago shows up and saves everybody. You know, I really think the best part of Endgame was when Thanos punched a bitch right out of the movie.
The problem that I had, I don't think it runs quite as deep as the problem you had. I think one of the problems I had was that Captain Marvel ruined our chances at a good Dark Phoenix movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read anything about everything that happened.
I heard a little bit, but I don't know exactly the whole story behind it.
And some of it might be rumor, some of it might be speculation, but from what I've read, it seems that a large chunk of that movie was changed to be able to separate it from Captain Marvel, because apparently they were introducing the Skrulls.
Oh, okay.
In Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which, if it would have come out when it was supposed to come out, would have came out significantly before Captain Marvel hit theaters.
Right.
And they had to take the Skrulls out altogether. Apparently, they had to alter scenes of the scope of the Phoenix power because it was significantly the breadth of the power was significantly larger than anything we would have seen from Captain Marvel. So there's this huge drive to make Captain Marvel spearhead the new phase of the movies. I've never been a fan of Captain Marvel in the comics.
Yeah.
Right.
It was never a dynamic enough character for me to and
She's basically female Superman, where there's no weakness, there's no threat of peril, there's no threat of danger. You're not worried or concerned about the character dying because she is way too powerful.
well, we have some really iconic characters. We really do. I mean, the Avengers are the creme de la creme of Marvel.
Yeah.
Minus the X-Men and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the fact that we culminated in a movie that, to me, I'm still amazed we ever got. I'm amazed in my lifetime that I saw Infinity War. I'm just I am when I look at that movie, I'm amazed that this was something I got to see.
Yeah.
Because as a kid growing up reading comics, and reading as a kid in the 70s reading comics, it was like, even though I knew movies had the potential to bring that stuff into a different world, into a different medium from those pages, I never in a million years thought I would see it.
Yeah, especially to this level.
I mean, but we also grew up on seeing a really weird Spider-Man series. We saw, I love the old Hulk, but the Hulk was basically, it was very formulaic.
Yeah.
Let's just face it. The Lou Ferrigno, Bill Bixby Hulk was a formulaic series. And the other things that we saw, we saw the movies, and we got a little Captain America stuff thrown in, it was fucking goofy and very...
With the rubber ears.
Oh, yeah, just very, B and stuff. But the fact that we got an Infinity War movie, still just, it amazes me. It absolutely amazes me that we got it. Because, man, you get to see a movie where it's got the Hulk in it, and Spider-Man, and Thor,
and Captain America,
and
Iron Man,
and even some of those characters that we never really knew we wanted to see,
AntMan,
Yeah.
which that turned into one of my favorite movies of all of these. I thought Ant-Man and Ant-Man 2 were fantastic.
And both of them were, and almost any scene that Paul Rudd is in sort of steals the show for me.
Yeah.
He's just such a likable guy, at least on camera. So the fact that we had all of that together, these are characters that, man, they do well on their own. But man, they look great in the team. And the fact that Captain Marvel seemed very rushed.
Yeah.
It's like, we have got to put this element here. We have got to have this transitional element. To me, it was difficult. It was difficult because I've never really liked the character that much. I have never bought, and I've bought a lot of comic books in my time, I have never bought a Captain Marvel book.
Yeah.
Ever.
The only thing I know about Captain Marvel, and I may even be having this wrong, but I believe Rogue got some of her powers from Captain Marvel.
I'm not even sure about that. I mean, I
thought that's where Rogue got her power of flight.
non-versed
Was from Captain Marvel.
and Captain Marvel. It wouldn't surprise you. I have no clue. But, I guess getting back to what we're talking about, though, this is the movie that I never thought I'd see.
Right.
The same like where we're talking about sequels that we'll never see.
Yeah.
I never in a million years thought we'd see this movie. I'll be honest with you. I never thought we'd see a Ghostbusters 3, but it's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
There are things that are happening right now that, to me, are mind-blowing. I never thought in my lifetime that I would see any cinematic Dark Tower properties. Now, mind you, man, the movie sucked. and sucked is...
An understatement.
I'm condensing an hour and 20 minutes of venomous hatred in the word sucks. Because if I were to expand upon that, we'd be here all night.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're getting an Amazon Prime series, and the casting, the showrunner, everything seems like they're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd ever see that. When I read the Dark Tower books, I was like, you can't put this
Yeah, you can't make this movie.
in cinematic context. You can't. The same way as the fact that we're getting a completely original Lord of the Rings series. These are things where I'm just... There's a part of me that used to hold on to stuff tightly. It was like, nobody can do anything with this because it's mine, I own it, and it's geeky, and I love it, and I don't want anybody to take it and twist it into something. But man, it's like the older I get, it's like, give me this shit before I die. I want to see all of it.
Yeah.
I want to see so much of it. I don't think I've ever been as excited for film as I am now. I mean, now I'm still reticent when it comes to talking about films the way they used to be.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of sentiment. You know, like talking about 80s horror is like, man, that's the golden age.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like the stuff that I hear coming out, the stuff that I know, there's more horror right now that I haven't watched.
Right.
Because quite simply, to watch all of it is a full-time job.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The idea that there is, good or bad, a Scream series I have not touched yet.
Well,
You know-
it was on MTV though, so
Well, like I said, good or bad, but the idea that it's there is
yeah.
like, to me, this
And-
is amazing.
and-
This stuff
and-
is amazing.
And the as weird as it's gonna sound, the Riverdale series. It seems like a teen drama, but it's Archie with like almost a horror Twin Peaks twist to it. I don't know if I was talking to you about it a while back. I don't know if you ever got around to watching it. Or
I
not.
haven't, but I keep hearing good things about it.
It's so good.
All of the stuff is like, to me, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that there. I have not watched a single episode of Good Omens, and I love that book. The idea, like I said, that there is so much stuff right now. Remember 12 years ago, 15
was a
years
drought.
ago, before all this shit hit, before somebody realized, hey, you know what really makes really good money? Blockbuster science fiction movies make really good money.
Yeah.
Do you know who loves science fiction? Fucking nerds.
Right.
You know, and I know because we can smell our own. So, and somebody at some point was like, what if we made a bunch of shit for nerds? And then the other guy went, we'd make a bunch of fucking money. And then they got excited about it, and they started to do it.
Or I gotta bring this up because I've been looking forward to this for so long. Tomorrow, Stranger Things season 3.
There's so much shit right now for me to watch.
Right.
I never thought, and honestly, as much as people criticize what streaming television has done, as much as people say that we haven't had good horror since the 80s, the fact is that we have so much to choose from right now that I'm as excited as I've ever been. That's probably why I still do this shit. I still do a fucking podcast in my 40s.
Yeah.
You know, I still talk about this stuff. I still buy action figures all the time.
And like, is it just me, or did you relate to it? Like, growing up as a kid in the Midwest in the early 80s, did you not watch Stranger Things? Like, even the first season, be like, this was my childhood.
Oh,
Yeah.
The kids in the basement playing Dungeons and Dragons,
Oh,
riding the
definitely.
bikes through the dark paths in the woods.
definitely. And I mean, you know, it does. This is a love-hate relationship that I have with the internet. I love the fact that us right now, the three of us, I love the fact that we are sitting in a room broadcasting what we're saying live to anybody who wants to listen. At the same time, I'm recording it, and I'm going to put it on a website where I know thousands of people daily visit and download this episode. That knowledge to me still is fantastic.
Yeah.
However, there is the caveat, the double-edged sword to it is that the simplicity of finding something you love, that needle in a haystack, when you were younger, I'll never get back.
Yeah.
Right.
I can replicate this feeling right here
Right.
next week.
Yep.
Maybe not with
Yeah.
Mark, but I mean, but I can replicate a similar feeling next week when we talk to somebody else. Not saying that every show is the same. Not saying that we're the same every show. But I can replicate this environment, hopefully, for years to come. What I can't replicate is I cannot replicate walking into a Target and finding a Clash of the Titans action figure
Right.
that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
That my kid brain had no idea it existed. My kid brain didn't even realize that there might be other action figures in that same line.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's discovery. I think that's where we're sort of at right now with a lot of this, is the idea of discovery. We don't have a lot of discovery right now when it comes to a lot of things. You know, what we do have is we have instantaneous gratification. And for my ADD brain, that's not all that bad either. But I got some fond memories of stuff when I was a kid. And like watching Stranger Things, man, when I watch that, I get that rush.
Oh, totally.
Because it harkens back, like, and this is totally a tangent, but then this entire show has been a tangent
Yeah.
at this point. One thing that I remember, and I remember fondly, is the absence of self-awareness when you're a kid. When you're experiencing things, it's you're living in that minute, in that second, in that moment.
You're very zen.
Because there was no yesterday, there's no tomorrow, there's now.
Yeah.
Then when you start to hit 14, 15 years old, all of a sudden, you're really concerned about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now, when you start getting in your 30s, you're concerned about yesterday.
Yeah.
You're concerned about today, and you're concerned about tomorrow. So it's this weird multiple timeline event that you're sort of witnessing. Now, have you seen it?
Yes.
The new one? I loved it, by the way.
It was great.
I unapologetically love that movie.
I do too.
Like, I love the 1990 version.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was 1990,
With Tim
right?
Curry,
That's right.
yeah.
I love the 1990 version. But I love the 2017 version. Like,
So
I
good.
love it unapologetically.
There was something very satisfying about it when you watch it. It's like, this is great.
Every note that they wanted to hit, they got.
Yeah.
That movie was understood. Like, it was completely and totally understood. And one thing about that film was, do you remember the scene where they're at the reservoir?
Yeah.
And they're all swimming. That scene, when I watched it, it actually made me ache.
Mm-hmm.
It made me ache thinking, holy shit, that is being a kid. Right there. This idea of the awkwardness and the fun and the weird interactions. Man, I'm watching that going, what is this feeling? You know, what is this like pull in my chest?
Yeah.
It's because watching that scene, I was like, this director gets that moment.
It's like, I was those kids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's weird being our ages now, because, man, when I was a teenager, God, I didn't want to be a little kid again.
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I didn't want to be a teenager or a little kid again.
Right.
When I was in my 30s, I didn't want to be in my 20s, a teenager or a little kid again. Now in my 40s, it's like, holy shit.
Right.
I've reached an appreciation mark. I've reached that moment where I look back and go, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Man, I had more better memories than I used to think, than I used to realize.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was at Chart Records yesterday. I went into Danville and went to Chart Records, and they have some old pictures up from, remember when they used to do the midnight releases, and JD took all the pictures and stuff. There's a picture of me, and I'm like, I'm so skinny in there. And I remember then I thought I was like a fat, disgusting, worthless waste of meat. And I look at that, I'm like, man, I wasn't a bad looking kid. How did I stay single through all of my teenage years and most of my 20s?
Well, because we were goofy as fuck. We said all the wrong things. I mean, honestly, that's no mystery. I mean, you've always been a good-looking guy, Mark. Seriously. I mean, I'm secure enough that I can say that. You've always been a good-looking...
I love you, Ash.
I know.
Boy, this show is taking a turn.
But and the thing has always been the fact that, it's that telltale old analogy. Man, if I knew
Now.
then what I know now.
Right.
But no, I understand exactly where you're coming from. It's weird. It's those small things, and I think you've got filmmakers who tell a story. You've got filmmakers who look at a script, and we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
They look at a script, and what they look at is scene. How do I get everything that's on paper on film? Because if I do that, then I've made a movie. I've told a story. And then you've got other people who look at that same scene and they think about, why does this scene make me feel like a kid? why does this scene make me want to pause the movie and call my mom?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you've got some of those filmmakers who there's such an emotional resonance and connection there that they're able to make that scene that makes a guy in his 40s sit there and his heart ache when he watches it.
Yeah.
And that's a phenomenon, man. That's lightning in a bottle. That's hard to capture.
It really is. It's one of those things that too. It's with filmmaking. You know, there's script and talent, but there's also the aspect of having a lot of heart in the movie. And that's where you get, like, even if you get people that are untalented, but they put all their heart and soul into a movie, that's how you end up with, like, Tommy Wiseau and, like, Ed Wood. You know, you get these guys, they put their so much love into the project they're working on that even if it's bad, there's something special about it.
It translates, you know, and you can see it translate. It's weird because we're definitely living in a really interesting time as far as film goes and as far as entertainment goes. I mean, geek culture has never been as appreciated, as understood, or as celebrated as it is right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
If things would have been the way they are now when I was 13 years old, I'd be a completely different person.
Right.
I would. That lack of confidence that we had, I think it would be much different.
Yeah.
I really do.
And could you imagine 20 years ago, somebody comes up to you and tells you, listen, in 10 years, there is going to be a TV series of zombies every week. You're going to have zombies on TV.
I've been like, shut the front door. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Shut the front
They'll
door.
never
That's
make
not
that.
going to
And
happen.
nail it shut.
Yeah, that's never going to happen.
And then, you know, we get to walk. Granted, it was only good for about 4 or 5 seasons before it got really boring, but...
You know what? This last season was actually good.
Yeah.
I was surprised how much I enjoyed the last season. The last season of that show, when they did the time jump forward,
Yeah.
I felt like I was watching the second season, the first
Really?
and second seasons all over again.
Because, like, they lost me with the Daryl and Beth stuff. That just, I was like, okay, this is boring.
Oh, there was a lot of downtime. Those were the episodes where even, like, Chanel and I were like, are we going to still watch this next week? You know, we had those moments, like, are we just doing it because this is what we do? Or are we doing it because we really enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, they lost me at that point. I think the last episode I watched was the one where Rick was, or I think it was Rick, was it Rick or was it Morgan, was in the house and there was that goat outside and the goat got killed.
Yeah,
It was like
I
chained.
must have had
He's
very
like in
little
a
interest
cage.
in
I
that
think it was
episode.
Morgan. He was like in a cage in this house.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a point where I don't even think I was wholeheartedly watching. You know, I think it was just on.
Yeah.
You know, and then it had to get to a point where things started to make it more enjoyable again, and then I sort of, my brain picked it back up
Yeah.
and became more invested in it than it was. But no, you're right. I never thought that we'd get that. There's a lot of stuff I just never thought that we'd see.
Yeah.
And plus the fact that I never thought that we'd see things accompany it. Like, for example, the fact that, you know, Jim and I had conversations about vinyl soundtracks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been getting into vinyl collecting a lot lately.
And the fact that we can do it right now is like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that I can pick up the vinyl soundtrack to Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Yeah.
I there's a store in town I can go to where I can get Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, on vinyl.
Yeah.
I didn't have that kind of availability when that movie was in the theater.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what is sort of mind-boggling right now.
I never thought we'd get a Wolf Cop movie,
No, and I never thought that I would.
let alone Wolf Cop 2.
And I never thought that I would have the soundtrack in
On
the other room on
On
vinyl
vinyl.
to Wolf Cop. But lo and behold, if you look through my vinyl, I have Wolf Cop soundtrack.
Well, like I've got an Apple Music subscription on my iPhone, so like when a new album comes out, instead of buying the CD and having to like rip it and do all this, I use it on, listen to it on my subscription. But I also pick up the vinyl so that I pick something up to support the artist, and you know have that physical copy. And I mean, it sounds great.
You know, I hate sounding like this hipster who's going to talk about how vinyl sounds great, and then you can hear the difference. But
you really can.
So I've got the double vinyl of Stranger Things.
Nice.
So season 1 and 2 on vinyl. So it's got not only some of the OST, but then it's got a lot of the songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, it's got a lot of good songs on there they've used throughout the show. And I can't remember what it was. Maybe was it like My Sharona? I don't know what it was that I put on. And it's like as soon as I put it on, I was like, I am hearing this song again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm hearing it. Like I'm really hearing everything in this song again. Like that's impressive to me. You know, it's really impressive to me. God, it's all of this is pretty miraculous. It really is. And the fact that it doesn't seem to be slowing down. I mean, we might hit hypersaturation and then we can't deal with it anymore. Who knows? But the fact that there's still stuff coming out 2 years from now that I know about now that I'm super excited about is like, this is momentous. Like this is a time because from 2000 to maybe 2010, I would say, was a little dodgy.
Well, those were the Jersey years.
Very true. Well, we've actually tapped out our second hour already.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't go through a lot of the sequels, which is absolutely fine.
We still don't have Spaceballs 2, The Quest for More Money.
And we still don't have Spaceballs 2, The Quest for More Money.
Or Wolf Cop 3.
Or Wolf Cop 3. But I think that one we're going to see.
I do too.
I think we're definitely going to see Wolf Cop 3.
As long as we're done with Sharknado.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. It was good having you back in the studio, Mark.
It's good being back in the studio.
It's been far, far, far too long. And always good having Mr. Chandler here, Jim.
Thank you.
Always appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have next, I believe we're going to be on Thursday instead of Wednesday. We have got, I know that is just a sound that I'm going to make so that there's no dead air while I take a look to see what we have on because maybe not that particular thing. We have, I believe we have the director of The Night Sitter, which is a new horror film that just came out. So that looks like Thursday the 11th.
Cool.
So, and I know that we never really release these on the night that we do them. Everything, the live version and the podcast version are a week apart.
Oh, and on a side note, Night Sitter and then our conversation earlier about falling in love with the babysitter remind me, have either of you seen the movie The Babysitter on Netflix?
Yes.
I have
That
not.
was so much fun.
You should watch that,
really?
Jim.
Okay.
You should definitely watch that. Yeah. Again, we need to thank Tom Haley for stopping by our first hour. It was great talking to him. We will be, for those of you listening live, if the live feed isn't working at this point, who knows? But we will be releasing Friday morning last week's show, which was the writer and director of The Evil Down the Street. So people should be seeing that. We got a lot of stuff coming up, man. A lot of stuff coming up. But thanks, Mark. Thanks, Jim. Everybody else, have a great night.
Have a good night.
Have a good evening.